have to hear this whole entire story or you're not going to understand. You won't get it. Okay, so when I was in prison, one of the biggest things that you would look forward to is mail call because getting mail was your connection to the outside world. It was a tangible thing that your people had touched that you were now touching, and it was the best. And so every single day at around 3:45, 4:30, the officer would call mail call. Everybody would go into the day room or they would hover around like the office, and she would call out all the people who had gotten mail. You would go up there and you would get it. And so it was a very public thing. And so people knew whether or not you got mail. And there would always be the same people there who were just hoping and praying with their fingers crossed, just begging, begging, begging that they got a piece of mail. And every single time she'd come to the end of it and there would be no more names left. And they'd be like, there's nothing for me, and there was nothing for them. Nobody would write them. Now, I got mail every single day on mail call. My dad wrote me, people in the church wrote me. I got just random little cards and stuff. My dad sent me little silly things, like just so I would not be sad on mail call day, basically. And so I told my dad, and I was like, Daddy, there's this girl here. Her name's Ashley. She never ever gets mail. Would you write her a letter just so she gets something, like so he could send some little article or like pictures from her Facebook or something, just like that. And he was like, Sure, absolutely. And so he was sent her like a little something other, and she got called at mail call. They were like Ashley, her last name, and she was like, and she went and got it, and she saw the return. It was from my dad. And she was like, Amanda, this is from your dad. And then a couple other girls, like it went from there. And then a couple other girls started writing my dad. And my dad ended up starting this entire like ministry where he would send Bibles to women in prison, and he would give like godly advice, like good, godly Christian, like basically being a dad to everyone kind of thing, right? And it became like his whole thing. Okay, fast forward to when I get out of prison. I'd been out of prison for about 2 months when my dad got a letter from this girl that was in prison. I wasn't locked up with her, she was at a different prison, but the same, SCDC. Well, I'm in the kitchen and I'm just like preparing a meal or whatever. My dad says, Amanda, come here. I want you to see something. And so I go into the living room. He's sitting on the couch and he's got his mail in front of him, and he's got a letter from a girl who was incarcerated. And he hands it to me and I read it. And the letter is from a girl who is from my area. She used to live in my area, and she basically said, I've heard about you and your daughter and that you guys are out there, you're doing good things. I'm going to be in prison for another like year and a half. Would you go to my house and take my kids to church? I have three daughters and I really want them to go to church. So she gives us this address and she basically says, just go over there and I'm going to write them to blah, blah, blah. And me and my dad look at each other and I was like, I'll do it. Like, I'll do it if you want to, let's do it. And so we went to this address that she provided for us. And it's like this cute little house in the end of a neighborhood. It's very, very small. And I go to the door, and the front door is like all stuff all over it. And so you use the back door. So I go to the back door, I knock on the door, and this teenager answers the door. And she's just like fresh face, sweet, big smile. And she's like, Hey, can I help you? I said, Hey, I'm a friend of your mom. She wrote me and she asked me if I would come over here and take you girls to church. And apparently, like her grandma was there, and she went and told her grandma, and then her grandma came to the door, and then they invited us and me and my dad. So the girls were like 7 and 8 and 13. I think that's how old they were. And the two youngest ones, Kaylin and Carly, they were just so stinking adorable. And then Tatiana was a little bit older, so she was a little bit more mature. And they were all for it. They were like, yeah, let's go to church. So not only did we start picking them up every single Sunday and taking them to church, they got really, really involved in like the kids ministry. And they would come over after church to our house, and we would just play, we would watch movies, and they would like put on these whole performances. Like they would go into my closet and like try on all my grown up clothes and like come out and do full on performances of like Jesus songs. And like they were just so freaking darling. I love these girls so much. Now, at the time, I didn't have my son back. So I was like, mothering. I felt like I could like use some of my nurturing towards these sweethearts. and we set it up on our phone so that their mom could call from the prison, and she would call, and they would be like, "Is that my mom? Is that my mom?" And they would take the phone and run off into like one of the bedrooms and shut the door so they could have like little one-on-one conversations with her. They love their mom so much. Oh my God, they love their mom so much. And they just could not wait for her to get home. Like they were counting down the days. And that woman loved her kids like you cannot even believe. Well, time goes by and I end up going to court and I end up winning custody of my son back. I got full custody of my son. He came back to live with me. He was 7 years old. And at this time, the girls were like 8 and 9. And it was just so great that these girls were already like a part of our family. Therefore, he would just be coming into this family that already had kids around his age. And they got off so well. Like they got along so great. They became the bestest of friends, the three younger ones especially. And I remember like getting Jameson enrolled in school and being like, there's a school right across the street. Like, why isn't he zoned for this school? Instead, he's zoned for this other school that's like a few miles past that. And then I realized that that was the same school that the girls went to. And so he was now going to be going into an elementary school where he already had two friends. So it just seemed like it was all working out. And it was incredible. Those girls stayed a huge part of our life until their mom got out of prison. And when she got out, she reconnected with them. She was a great mother. And like, I don't know, I got married and like, you kind of drift apart. But they stayed like loving us and they had like we stayed connected on social media and stuff. Like they're precious. We have a great relationship with them. Oh, and all three of them got saved and baptized. Okay, so 2 years ago, about 2 years ago, I shared this story on TikTok and I messaged them all before I posted the story just to make sure that it was okay with them. And they were like, yes, absolutely. And so I ended up like talking to one of the older of the younger girls and I was like, hey girl, like I really miss you. I wish we could get together. And she was like, me too. I really, really miss you guys. And so we set it up that they would come to church on one Sunday and then we would all go out to eat afterwards. So when the day comes, they both come to church. And at this time, they're like 18 and 20, I think. Like they're really young, but also like all grown up. And they're so beautiful. They're doing so good. Like Kaylin has a daughter now, and she brought her daughter with her. And then the other girl, Carly, was in college, like just killing it, making straight A's, like doing all the things. It ended up being just me and my dad, and Kaylin and Carly, and then her daughter and we got Zaxby's and we ended up bringing it back to the house and we it was just us and we sat there and we just reminisced and we just laughed and like it was just the best little visit ever. We did some of those little photo things, like pictures of them like in the same poses as little girls and then like all grown up. And it was just cute and precious and delightful. I think it was like less than 2 weeks later. It was a Monday at work, and I know it was a Monday because I was just swamped with work and hadn't even looked at my phone. And on Monday evenings, I do a group with my peers, and I go in there and I'm all prepared. And one of my group members is like crying, like her face is like puffy and red, and she's crying. And she goes, "I guess you heard." And I was like, "Heard what?" She was like, "You really don't know?" And like at this point, my heart is pounding. I'm like, "I really don't know what." And she said, "Kaylin got killed. She got hit and she died." My whole world just crumbled. And as a professional, I'm like trying to keep it together and continue on with the group. I've got all these people in this group that aren't just me and this other girl who knew Kaylin. And I started crying. I literally couldn't do the group. I told everybody, I was like, I'm sorry. I have to go. I have to go. Everybody was really understanding and they all left. And then I came back to my office right here and I looked down at my phone for the first time all day and I saw that my dad had sent me a message saying, Amanda, call me as soon as possible. And I called him and I was just like, Daddy, there's no way. Like, there's no way. And he told me basically like what had happened and she had gotten her car had broken down and a drunk driver had hit her and she had died instantly. And I just cried because I was like, but daddy, why? Like, no, how is this happening? And y'all, my heart was just destroyed. Of course, I went straight to Carly and Tatiana and reached out to them and was just like, guys, I'm like trying to offer my condolences or whatnot. And like, they said, "We talked to mom, and mom wants to know if you will do the funeral." And I was like, "I'm not equipped. Like, I don't know how to do a funeral." And they said, "Well, she saw you as like a spiritual person in her life who she loved and honored, and you were the one that we trust to do this." And of course, I agreed. And y'all, like, I was so emotional the day of. There were so many people there. Her casket was pink. I did not I did not do it justice. I wish I could have stepped out of myself a little bit and like really not been grieving so hard and like done it justice. And I tried to keep in touch with them, like, of course, after the funeral and everything. Carly, she's just so freaking precious and smart. Oh my gosh, she's so smart. And she's just done such a remarkable job of like being her sister's little girl's aunt and being there for her mom. So, like I said earlier, it's been 2 years, and the other day I woke up and thinking about thinking about her sweet little freckled face and her big smile and her intense hugs and how dorky she was. And like I was just refilling everything. And I had jumped on Facebook, and it turned out it was the anniversary of the day that she had passed. And I just been feeling it a little bit more intensely. So my dad still has a prison ministry, and because of finances and stuff, he's not able to send Bibles in anymore. But now he just sends like good godly wisdom, and he keeps copies of all the letters that he sends in and all the letters that get sent to him, and they're all just he's got such an incredible heart. He wrote this one girl, she asked for a Bible, no idea how she ended up getting his address, and she had wanted a Bible, and then, but she was in a whole different state, like Pennsylvania or Virginia or something. They wrote back and forth like every 2 to 3 weeks for 2 years. And then suddenly, like, she got out, and like happens, she got busy with whatever had going on in her life, and she stopped writing my dad, and my dad stopped hearing from her. And the other day, just on a whim, he decides to like Google her name, and she had died. And I just got to thinking, like, if she hadn't written my dad, would she know God? Like, would she have a relationship with Jesus? Would she be in heaven right now? I don't know. You just think about everything in life and how everything works together. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys today.